Okay, people, we've discovered some incredible abuses of the budget. I mean, really, where are you getting off with these insane expenditures? $10 million spent on body positivity for Haitians in captivity, $8 million on glitter bombs for Saudi Arabian imams, and $9 million on chocolate fondue for East Ukrainian Hebrews.
They have just as much a right to chocolate fondue as anyone, you Nazi!
Well, I'm sorry, but it has to be cut.
No! If you cut $10 million from the CFEUH budget, what's next? Cutting our $3 million budget to give free McFlurries to Pakistani furries?
Well, now that you bring it up.
Oh, come on!
Oh, wow. That's yeah, no, we're definitely cutting that.
This is insanity. You're letting our budget get cut by literal babies.
Because even an infant can balance these books better than you. I mean, come on, people. Come on. 50 million taxpayer dollars for Kool-Aid water fountains for North Korean accountants. Abortion on demand for pandas in Japan. 1,000 packs of Smarties for Iraqi slumber parties.
If you touch any of the Iraqi slumber party budgets, I will shoot you myself.
I'm sorry, but it has to go.
This is clearly a slippery slope to canceling our program to destigmatize marijuana for Latinx folks in Uganda.
Your budget for that is $9 million, and frankly, I think you can do it for $8.
You genocidal freak!
We also definitely need to cut.
Please not. Saucy male dancers for Australians with colon cancer. No!
Yes, well, we're at it. We're going to trim. Teaching Zodiac for a more gender-fluid Iraq. A high-speed train for hermaphrodites in Ukraine. Welfare benefits for Aboriginal feminists. And the $12 million you're spending on sex changes for polar bears. This just says sex changes for polar bears. It doesn't even rhyme.
It didn't need to rhyme! It was important enough and it didn't need to rhyme!
Oh, Freedom Tunes is so good.
The only program left in my department is $12 million to buy IUDs for corgis and police.
Yeah, we're going to reduce that. And one more thing. I really think we need to be spending at most half as much as we currently are on easy bake ovens for Saudi Arabian covens.
I don't want to live.
Don't do it. You have so much to live for.
Like what?
If it's promoting alternative fuels to Afghani polycules, I have bad news for you.
I don't know if YouTube will let me do it. I don't know if I can show this on YouTube. I don't know what's going to happen. You're going to have to check out Freedom Tunes for the rest of that. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I am your host, Joe Nicerman, a.k.a. Good Lawgic. So I had to look over here just to remind myself of my name. Joe Nicerman. That's right. That's what it says up here on the screen, a.k.a. Good Lawgic. Hope your day's been going great. As we're leading into Hump Day Wednesday over here. Yesterday, I wasted a solid 90 seconds trying to find a clip from Snow White that I felt I owed my audience. I owed it to you. And I teased it, and I was like, oh, this is pretty good. And then I didn't even show it to you, and I felt very badly about that. Very, very badly about that. So I'm gonna make my amends presently. This is the clip that I was referencing yesterday.
On the wall, who's the fairest one of all?
Let's see.
Excuse me. Your curtain. Please allow me to help.
Help? From you? Spare me your white savior complex.
I didn't mean to offend. I just thought you should know that.
That I should know what? That some privileged white guy thinks his opinion matters? Get over your entitlement. I'm not some damsel in distress waiting for you to ride in on your high horse.
I'm really sorry. I was just trying to be kind.
Kind? If you want to be kind, disappear and take the patriarchy with you. Seriously, go away, stalker. You're weird. Weird.
My queen, you're the fairest. but no longer the most evil.
Wait, what?
There you go. There you go. There you go. Yes, Dom Mannion. I wasted 60 to 90 seconds of your precious time. And I apologize for that. But at least I made up for it now, right? I made up for it now. That's something. That's something. Speaking of making up for stuff, I never covered this on the show yet, but many of you probably heard about the FEMA waste of $59 million. $59 million. That's correct. On 1 week worth of hotel stays for immigrants in New York City. $59 million. Unbelievable. Well, today that had repercussions. Today.
Some breaking news now. The Department of Homeland Security firing 4 FEMA employees after it was revealed they authorized $59 million in payments for luxury hotels in New York City to house migrants. The firings include FEMA's chief financial officer, 2 program analysts, and a grant specialist. The payments reportedly violating President Trump's executive order prioritizing disaster relief funds for Americans. It also comes as President Trump calls for FEMA to be terminated. Let's go to Tom Dempsey in Washington with more on this. This just happened.
I got to tell you, I got a lot of issues with FEMA. Termination? Do I think that FEMA was co-opted and abused and used by nefarious people with an evil agenda in a very evil way? Yes. Conceptually, I think FEMA makes sense. You know, I mean, if the people suffer from a natural disaster, you kind of want them to be able to get relief. And I know that Trump called for the abolition of FEMA altogether. I don't really understand that. I'm curious about your take on that. Do you think that we should just get rid of FEMA rather than just fixing it and making it like used the way it's intended? I love Kurt. There you go. Just send ICE to the hotel. Problem solved. You see, dump it and rebuild it. You see, I don't understand what that means. I don't understand what that means because why are you rebuilding it? I mean, you tell me if by dump it, you mean fire everyone there and replace them with like different people. Okay, that I can understand. You know, restructuring who's there. I agree that FEMA should not be dealing with immigrants. I agree with you on that. I'm simply saying we saw a hurricane in North Carolina that was devastating. And frankly, I wish FEMA had been used appropriately for people who, you know, perhaps didn't have proper insurance or were suffering in other ways where FEMA emergency relief and aid was necessary. It's very, look, I'm all for slashing waste, but I can understand saying that FEMA is a necessary thing. God forbid any of us should need it, but you know, it's a necessary thing at times, right? Give it to the states. All right. Well, anyway, let's go further here.
These firings, what more can you share?
Hey, Marty. Yeah, just in the last hour, News Nation confirmed the Department of Homeland Security fired 4 employees, including the chief financial officer of FEMA for payments made to New York luxury hotels that house migrants. We want to show you some of the statement that was obtained by News Nation. This is from the Department of Homeland Security, and it says in part, quote, effective immediately, FEMA is terminating the employment of 4 individuals for circumventing leadership to unilaterally make agreements egregious payments for luxury New York City hotels for migrants, and adding, quote, DHS will not sit idly and allow deep state activists to undermine the will and safety of the American people. This comes as President Donald Trump has really been critical of FEMA, even calling out the agency and saying it should be terminated.
You see, I'm not saying that they haven't been abused. I'm simply saying the existence of the agency conceptually makes sense to me. You want to overhaul how it's run so that it's actually run to and fulfills the objectives that we all assume FEMA is supposed to be for, that's fine. But abolishing the entity altogether and just abandoning the concept and saying, well, all right, we don't have that anymore. To me, that feels a little short-sighted.
In a post to Truth Social in just the last hour, in fact, the president wrote, quote, the Biden-run FEMA has been a disaster. FEMA should be terminated.
So he wants individual states to handle
it has been slow and totally ineffective. Individual states should handle storms as they come. Big savings, far more efficient. Aside from...
So that's an interesting idea. Say the state will handle it itself. Okay. Shouldn't be a federal problem. All right.
From FEMA's chief financial officer, the DHS firings, though, include 2 program analysts as well as a grant specialist. So a little bit of a shakeup regarding all this, Marnie.
Indeed. All right, Tom, thanks for the update. And thank you.
And by the way, I remember when New York was hit by hurricanes in the early part of the century. Actually, the late aughts, I think it was when it was. Late aughts, there was like back-to-back years or 2 years apart, there was some massive hurricanes which rocked New York. And from what I recall, it was New York State itself which took care of most of... They created like a new commission specifically to deal with Hurricane Irene. And there was like an agency set up for, victims of Hurricane Irene. So you could probably make a cogent argument that it perhaps would be more effective to handle it on a state-by-state basis. All right. Yeah, it was Sandy and Irene. That's correct. Sandy and Irene. All right. Anyway, so as Benny Johnson reported, the name of the individual who was fired, one of the 4 individuals who was fired over there, was Chief Financial Officer Mary Comans for illegally funding migrant luxury hotels in New York City against the orders of President Trump. Comans is arguably the most powerful person in FEMA, controlling billions in funding, and obviously an incompetent boob, as we see from how there was plenty of money for migrants and no money for North Carolina. Quote, effective immediately. FEMA has terminated the employment of 4 individuals for circumventing leadership to unilaterally make egregious payments for luxury New York City hotels and migrants. I know there was talk about getting this money back. I don't think that's going to happen. Firings include FEMA's chief financial officer, 2 program analysts, and grant specialists. Under Trump and Secretary Noem's leadership, DHS will not sit idly and allow deep state activists to undermine the will and safety of the American people. So it is significant. The DHS official would not rule out criminal charges against the FEMA employees for gross misuse of taxpayer dollars. What do you think of that, Kurt? Federal prosecution for gross misuse of taxpayer dollars. Check out the FEMA profile, Mary Comans. Ms. Comans served as FEMA's CFO, longtime public servant who has served as FEMA's acting chief operation officer and acting external affairs director, as well as numerous positions across the Department of Homeland Security headquarters and its components. In each of these roles, Ms. Comans has brought professionalism, leadership, and woke social activism that has reinforced her reputation as an efficient, very efficient. Oh, so efficient. She's the mark of efficiency right there. The mark of efficiency right there. Oh, much. As a fellow alum from Fordham. Not that I went there from undergrad, but I went there. That's right. I did get, in case you're wondering, I did get my Juris Doctorate from Fordham University. Fordham University, a very fine institution, at least as law school. Anyway, one of the things you hear people talking about is we are going to be listening to the DOGE update given from the Oval Office by Trump and Elon. But before we get to that, a lot of people are saying, no one voted for Trump. No one voted for Elon. Why do we have President Elon? No one voted for Elon. This is not what anyone voted for. Well, putting aside how Trump's popularity has only risen since his inauguration, the reality is that this is precisely what we voted for. It was what was promised to us during Trump's campaign.
The suggestion of Elon Musk, who has given me his complete and total endorsement. That's nice.
This is from
Smart
the campaign
guy.
trail.
He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. It's very, very much appreciated. I will create a government efficiency commission tasked with conducting a complete financial and performance audit of the entire federal government and making recommendations for drastic reforms. We need to do it. Can't go on the way we are now.
That's what he campaigned on. Promises
and
made.
Elon, because he's not very busy, has agreed to head that task force. The suggestion.
Promises kept. Promises made. Promises kept. That's what this is right here. We all voted for Elon. We did. All 77 million of us. That was there. It was in the bill of lading when we were signing up for Trump. So it's kind of ridiculous for people to say that. I don't know why do we have Elon here? I don't know what's happening. What's happening here? Nana saying FEMA should be disavowed, disowned. While living in California, I had to pay $3,500 a year Rodrigo flood insurance mandated by FEMA because one house flooded 3 streets over. FEMA was the only insurance carrier. Rip-off deductible was $50,000. Oh my God! Oh my God, Nana, that's terrible. $3,500 a year in flood insurance. Because one house flooded 3 streets over. $3,500 with a $50,000 deductible. Oh my God. That is insane. I'm sorry for you. Wow. FEMA's always sucked. I live in the Gulf Coast the Gulf of America, the Gulf Coast in Texas. No stranger to hurricanes. Community and Cajun Navy help more than FEMA. Well, there you go. There you go. Testify, Nurse Weezer. Just passing by, brother. Thank you, Daniel. Same old Daniel, different photo. Oh, we should get back to tunnel expansion. LOL. God bless you all. Yeah, you were from the heyday. You were like back from when my beard didn't have any gray in it. When I was like, I didn't have glasses, and every stream I'd be like, this before I invested in glasses. Oh my God. Man, Daniel, good to see you. Good to see you, Dragon. Oh, that's a blast from the past. He is OG. He is OG. All right. I think it's time we start checking in on this press conference. Oh, I did tweet out about this. Thank you, Kathy. That President Trump negotiated a deal with Putin to release Mark Fogel. I think he's a teacher who was arrested in Russia for bringing in weed. It's the sort of thing that made like Lady Lawgic very nervous about me carrying weed internationally. It was very moving, a must watch. I'm putting that on the back burner, Kathy. We'll see. I want to get into DOGE. And there's little X right there. There's the cutest kid.
X, are you okay? This is X, and he's a great guy, high IQ. He's a high IQ individual.
And he's got this. Check out this cool chain he's got.
So thank you very much. We had a busy day today. The king just left, and we've had a great discussion, terrific discussion concerning Gaza and everything else. We had discussions also about Saturday at 12 o'clock. It's going to be a big moment. We'll see what happens. I don't expect much happening with these people, but we'll see what happens. And we're going to be signing a very important...
hold on. Before I get to this, Denise Ann says, Joe, if we clean it up and allow FEMA to remain, they'll just corrupt it again. We'll have to start over. Leave it to the states. That's fair. That's a fair critique from Denise over in the ghetto.
And, deal today. It's DOGE, and I'm going to ask Elon to tell you a little bit about it and some of the things that we found, which are shocking. Billions and billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse. And I think it's very important. And that's one of the reasons I got elected. I said, we're going to do that. Nobody had any idea it was that bad, that sick, and that corrupt. And it seems hard to believe that judges want to try and stop us from looking for corruption, especially when we found hundreds of millions of dollars worth, much more than that, in just a short period of time. We want to weed out the corruption. And it seems hard to believe that a judge could say, we don't want you to do that. Well, so maybe we have to look at the judges, because that's a very serious, I think it's a very serious violation.
I'm just going to pause on this as far as, since he's bringing up the judges. Someone before this show asked me to look at a case of Mississippi v. Johnson from 1866. I don't know where this individual came up with that case, Mississippi v. Johnson. I did check it out very quickly. This was I saw in the chat, very early in the chat, before the show even started. I started the show at 10:30 p.m. At 10:20, I see this chat, and I pull up this Mississippi v. Johnson case, and I start skimming through it. So I haven't done a deep dive on this case. But I will tell you that I did pull it up. And I do think that it's relevant in the context of him talking about these judges who are interfering with Trump and his efforts to try and get his agenda through and trim down the country's budget. So what they come out with is the President of the United States cannot be restrained by injunction from carrying into effect an act of Congress alleged to be unconstitutional, nor will a bill having such a purpose be allowed to be filed. The President cannot be restrained by injunction from carrying into effect an act of Congress alleged to be unconstitutional. So if he's trying to do something that's alleged to be unconstitutional, he cannot be restrained, nor will a bill having such a purpose be allowed to be filed. It makes no difference whether such incumbent of the presidential office be described in the bill as president or simply as citizen of the state. And if you get down into the actual decision itself, it says a motion was made some days since in behalf of the state of Mississippi for leave to file a bill in the name of the state, praying this court perpetually to enjoin and restrain Andrew Johnson, President of the United States, from executing or in any manner carrying out certain acts of Congress therein named. So they said they wanted the court to tell President Johnson that he was prohibited from carrying out on a statute that had been passed by Congress. Those statutes were the Reconstruction Acts. So we say we limit our inquiry to the question presented by the objection without expressing opinion on the broader issues discussed. What do they come out with? The single point which requires consideration is this: can the president be restrained by injunction, meaning an order from the court, from carrying into effect an act of Congress alleged to be unconstitutional? So Congress passes a bill State says it's unconstitutional. President is going forward with carrying out the bill. We now are asking the court to stop the president until that bill is adjudicated as far as whether or not the bill itself is constitutional. That's a little different, obviously, than this present scenario. You can distinguish it by saying there he's carrying out congressional law, as opposed to here, where he's carrying out his own EO. But I understand why it is that you came to this case, because there is language in this statute, in this case, which seems to support the notion that you would think that Trump could bring this in and say, get the hell out of my face. You're not allowed to challenge how I run this, how I run my executive branch. As they say, it's true that the instance before us, the interposition of the court is not sought to enforce action by the executive under constitutional legislation, but to restrain such action under legislation alleged to be unconstitutional. But we are unable to perceive that this circumstance takes the case out of the general principles which forbid judicial interference with the exercise of executive discretion. So the Supreme Court here is recognizing that normally we are forbidden from having judicial interference with the exercise of the executive discretion. It was admitted in the argument that the application now made to us without a precedent, and this is a much weight against it. Had it been supposed at the bar that this court would, in any case, interpose by injunction to prevent the execution of unconstitutional acts of Congress, it can hardly be doubted that the applications with that object would be heretofore addressed to it. There's a lot of times we could have interfered and didn't. I'm a little curious whether a court could distinguish based on the fact that this is an executive order rather than the president trying to carry out a statute. So I think that this is influential. This could be influential without it being necessarily binding, because I do think it's possible to be distinguished. I'm simply saying, like, I'm trying to imagine a scenario here. Someone comes and says, we want to stop Trump from doing this because we think that it's against his right to do it. And Trump is going to defend it by saying, this court can't stop me from doing it. You can't do anything to me because, an attempt on the part of the Judicial Department of the government to enforce the performance of such duties by the president might be justly characterized in language of Chief Justice Marshall as an absurd and excessive extravagance, meaning the court is separation of powers. You can't tell me how I'm going to carry out the executive portion of governance. So, which is what Chief Justice Marshall seemed to imply here. I'm simply saying it could be distinguishable, but it's an interesting case. So that's why I wanted to call. Once he's mentioning all these court orders, and someone had asked me to look at it, and I did take a quick look at it. I do think there's some relevance to it. Some relevance. But I don't know that it would be dispositive in his favor.
I'll ask Elon Musk to say a few words, and we'll take some questions. Elon, go ahead.
Sure. So at a high level, if you say, what is the goal of DOGE and I think a significant part of the presidency is to restore democracy. This may seem like, well, aren't we in a democracy? Well, if you don't have a feedback loop, FAX, we'd have to, if you
His name really is X? I thought that was a joke. That's funny.
It's all right. So, tell you, gravitas can be difficult sometimes. If there's not a good feedback loop from the people to the government. And if you have rule of the bureaucrat, or if the bureaucracy is in charge, and then what meaning does democracy actually have? If the people cannot vote and have their will be decided by their elected representatives in the form of the president and the Senate and the House, then we don't live in a democracy. We live in a bureaucracy. So it's incredibly important that we close that feedback loop, we fix that feedback loop, and that the public's elected representatives, the president, the House, and the Senate, decide what happens, as opposed to a large unelected bureaucracy. This is not to say that there are good people who are in the federal bureaucracy, but you can't have an autonomous federal bureaucracy. You have to have one that's responsive to the people. That's the whole point of a democracy. And if you looked at this, if you looked at the founders today and said, what do you think of the way things have...
I need to stop really quick here, okay? The St. John has been here for one friggin' year. Happy birthday, St. John! Happy birthday indeed. Looking forward to another year, my friend, as we make America great again. I appreciate explaining the nuances of the law. Sound a lot smarter thanks to you. God bless you. See, remember the following for a year, and it is noticeably smarter. Noticeably smarter. It's not me. It's just being part of the following, which is what does it. That's really what it is. But I appreciate the kudos all the same.
It turned out. Well, we have this unelected fourth unconstitutional branch of government, which is the bureaucracy, which has, in a lot of ways, currently more power than any elected representative. And this is not something that people want, and it's not. It does not match the will of the people. So it's just something we've got to fix. And then we've also got to address the deficit. So we've got a $2 trillion deficit, and if we don't do something about this deficit, the country's going bankrupt. I mean, it's really astounding that the interest payments alone on the national debt exceed the Defense Department budget, which is shocking because we spend a lot of money on defense, but if that just keeps going, we're essentially going to bankrupt the country. So what I really want to say is, like, it's not optional for us to reduce the federal expenses. It's essential. It's essential for America to remain solvent as a country, and it's essential for America to have the resources necessary to provide things to its citizens and not simply be servicing vast amounts of debt.
And also, could you mention some of the things?
Here's the thing also, there's another benefit. America taking steps to look responsible strengthens the dollar. It strengthens it because it builds trust in the dollar. If we stop this deficit spending, and look, we're going to keep this deficit, but we stop spending. Whenever Biden would be like talking about cutting the deficit, that would just be like how much over budget we are. Not slashing that it's 38 million. We're going to bring that down to 37 million. No. It's just we anticipated it would be 40 million, and instead it's 39.7. Sorry, I keep saying million, trillion. And instead of it being that he was never talking about cutting, 30 trillion down to 29. It was, we're anticipating that next year it's going to be 32 trillion. It's only going to be 31.8. So that's they're cutting. They're cutting. Oh, that's real cutting. That the deficit is only growing over the next year, which is the stupidest thing in the world. But that's to Democrats what they consider a big win. That's a big win. Oh, good job, you. Great job. Great job. If we can actually get to a point that we are working within our budget, that strengthens the dollar. That makes you richer. It makes all of us richer. The stronger the dollar is, the more spending power you have. Now $10 buys more than it could yesterday. That's like getting a tax-free raise. So whatever steps they're taking to strengthen the dollar, and this certainly seems like it's likely to, it can't hurt the dollar, it can only strengthen it, is actually a way of making Americans richer.
That your team has found some of the crazy numbers, including the woman that walked away with about 30 million,
right,
etc.
Well, we do find it sort of rather odd that there are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position.
I hope to God they go after every one of them. And I don't care if they're in the bureaucracy, sitting in Congress. I hope every one of these filthy, rich, ridiculous, how the hell did you get that much money type of situations are thoroughly investigated by Kash Patel and prosecuted by Pam Bondi.
You know, what happened to USAID? We're just curious as to where it came from. Maybe they're very good at investing, in which case we should take their investment advice, perhaps. But just there seems to be mysteriously they get wealthy. We don't know why. Where does it come from? And I think the reality is that they're getting wealthy at taxpayer expense. That's the honest truth of it. So, you know, we're looking at say, we just if you look at say Treasury, for example, basic controls that should be in place that are in place in any company. Such as making sure that any given payment has a payment categorization code, that there is a comment field that describes the payment, and that if a payment is on the do not pay list, that you don't actually pay it. None of those things are true currently.
That's pathetic.
So the reason that departments can't pass audits is because the payments don't have a categorization code. It's like just a massive number of blank checks just flying out the building. So you can't reconcile blank checks. You've got comment fields that are also blank, so you don't know why the payment was made. And then we've got this truly absurd, a do not pay list, which can take up to a year for an organization to get on a do not pay list. And this, we're talking about terrorist organizations, we're talking about known fraudsters, known aspects of waste, known things that do not match any congressional appropriation, can take up to a year to get on the list. And even once on the list is not used.
How is that?
It's mind-blowing.
How is that possible? How is that even possible? How does that make any sense? Why have a list if you're not even going to bother? Why would they even make a list if you're not going to, if you just say, not even look at it? Unbelievable.
So what we're talking about here, we're really just talking about adding common sense controls that should be present, that haven't been present. So you say, like, well, how could such a thing arise? That seems crazy. When you understand that really everything is geared towards complaint minimization, so then you understand the motivations. So if people receive money, they don't complain, obviously. But if people don't receive money, they do complain. And the fraudsters complain the loudest and the fastest. So then when you understand that, then
we need to hire people who are happy to say to these folks, go to hell. Or what Elon said when he was sitting there, which is GFY. We need to have people in there who have the cojones to actually say, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. I nominate myself as tribute, okay? That I will basically, I'll field calls for, and you only have to have it for like 3 hours a day. You say, okay, go call good Lawgic. He'll walk you through why you're not being paid. And I'll take for 3 hours a day, I'll take a very, very minimum, very, very threshold type of government salary here. And my job will just be to tell people, go to hell. No, you're a fraudster. You get nothing. You lose. Zippo. Nada. Nil. You got balls to even call me. Get the hell out of here. We're through with you. Adios. No more free meals. No free lunch here, Sally. We're done with you. Okay? Sorry, Dennis. We're not doing this anymore. That's not happening. It's not happening. It's like, how hard is it? Should be like, sorry, Dennis, if that's your real name. Go away. We don't need you. Why are you calling me? If you're calling me, it means you've been identified as someone who's full of crap. You should be embarrassed by your very existence. Your mother sure as hell is humiliated by you. Go away. They should probably hire dozens of people like that. Adios.
Then it makes sense. Oh, that's why everything they approve all the payments at Treasury, because if you approve all the payments, you don't get complaints. But now we're saying that no, actually we are going to complain if money is spent badly, if your taxpayer dollars are not spent in a sensible and frugal manner, then that's not okay. Your tax dollars need to be spent wisely on things that matter to the people. I mean, these things, like, it's just common sense. It's not draconian or radical. I think it's really just saying, let's look at each of these expenditures and say,
it's actually looking at our government as if it's, I don't know, a corporation. Maybe a charitable corporation, but it's a corporation. Actually just looking at, like, what the heck are we're running things the way they're supposed to be run. It's basic common sense. You don't need the likes of Elon to come up with this. It's just that no one besides him is going to be listened to on this.
Is this actually in the best interest of the people? And if it is, it's approved. If it's not, we should think about it. So, there's crazy things like just cursory examination of Social Security, and we've got people in there that are 150 years old. Now, do you know anyone who's 150? I don't. Okay. They should be on the Guinness Book of World Records. They're missing out. So, that's a case where, like, I think they're probably dead. It's my guess. Or they should be very famous, one of the two. And then there's a whole bunch of Social Security payments where there's no identifying information. Well,
it's just unbelievable. It's like what is happening here? It's just like the taxpayer coffers. You just have all these different people just coming in there with these big bulging pockets, just shoving pockets of money, and just flying out. There's just overstuffing it with cash. Unbelievable. Work for FEMA, then Vanguard contracted for them for years. Yes, get rid of them. Have this SOS simply send relief funds to states with aid mandate, corps of engineers, medship services, etc. Probably would make more sense. All right, y'all convincing me. Y'all convincing me here. The past god of thunder and rock and roll will sell you under and rob you of your virgin soul. Okay. May some of the glory be to our fearless cult leader, Joe. I'll be in the trenches. Aye, aye. You go, Captain. Trump/Elon are the B.O. Beebs. What would you say you do here? I'm not sure. What would you say you do here? Oh, the Bobs. Oh, I know what you're talking about from that movie. What would you say you do here? There you go. I think that's what you mean. I'm gonna go with that. The goal is I butchered that. Sorry, brother. The goal is to cut the deficit, which left told wearing the debt ceiling time and time over. Ideally, an exponential cut time over time to balance the budget. Yep. Maybe start making profit some year so we can start catching up. I don't know. Thank you. Very kind of you to notice.
Why is there no identifying information? Obviously, we want to make sure that people who deserve to receive Social Security do receive it, and that they receive it quickly and accurately. Also, another crazy thing. So, one of the things is, like, we are trying to sort of right-size the federal bureaucracy, just make sure that this.
I missed this. KX2 says Army Corps of Engineers in the Pacific Palisades start moving all the burned debris from the homes. Well, that's good. You don't need FEMA for that, right? You don't need FEMA.
Obviously, there needs to be a lot of people working for the federal government, but not as many as currently. So we're saying, let's, if people can retire, with full benefits and everything, that would be good. They can retire, get their retirement payments, everything. And then we were told, this is actually, I think, a great anecdote, because we were told the most number of people that could retire possibly in a month is 10,000. We're like, well, why is that? Well, because all the retirement paperwork is manual on paper. It's manually calculated, then written down on a piece of paper. Then it goes down a mine. And like, what do you mean a mine? Like, yeah, there's a limestone mine where we store all the retirement paperwork. that look, and you look at a picture of this mine. We'll post some pictures afterwards. And this mine looks like something out of the 50s because it was started in 1955. So it looks like it's like a time warp. And then the speed, the limiting factor is the speed at which the mine shaft elevator can move determines how many people can retire from the federal government.
And this is what he's talking about here. It's like no matter how many dwarves they got working there in the mines, if the elevators don't go faster, we can't do it. Can't do it. Like, why don't they set up some sort of electronic way to retire? I don't know. It does look like it's the 1950s. Yeah, expecting like all the people here to hi-ho up and down. This is our government. Our government is basically, you know, the workers got a hi-ho, hi-ho. It's off to retirement land we go. I can't whistle. Yeah, so there you go. It's gotta be a joke. Oh, the BOBs. Damn it. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is.
And the elevator breaks down sometimes, and then nobody can retire. Doesn't that sound crazy? There's like 1,000 people that work on this. So I think if we can take those people and say, like, you know what, instead of working in a mine shaft and carrying manila envelopes to, you know, boxes in a mine shaft, you could do practically anything else. And you would add to the goods and services of the United States in a more useful way. So anyway, so I think, you know, that's an example. Like at a high level, if you say, like, how do we increase prosperity? Is we get people to shift from roles that are low to negative productivity to high productivity roles, and so increase the total output of goods and services, which means that there's a higher standard of living available for everyone. That's the actual goal. Everyone's very quiet, by the way. So people normally is quiet?
Your detractors, Mr. Musk.
I have to what?
Including a lot of Democrats.
I have detractors?
You do, sir.
I don't believe it.
Say that you're orchestrating a hostile takeover of government and doing it in a non-transparent way. What's your response to that criticism?
Well, first of all, you couldn't ask for...
This is like a million times more transparent. A million times more transparent than anything we ever saw from Biden. It calls to mind this exchange here. But, damn it. I just lost something I wanted.
It's 20.
This is on CNN. They were talking about the transparency or purported lack thereof, which led to a hostile exchange because Democrats got nothing left in the tank short of cussing.
3 days in here, guys. 23 days. You were talking about 2.3 billion that was saved last year. These guys are saving 2.3 billion a day.
Right, but
it's incredible.
That's what they're saying.
But
that's what they're saying. That's what they're saying. We don't know that's true. Oh no. Oh no, we don't know that's true. I mean, he does his best Jimmy Stewart imitation. Oh yeah, that's what they're saying. And caught a fish this big. Oh yeah. That's not really necessarily the facts, though. We don't know. That's what they're saying. Oh yeah. Tell us Jeffrey Toobin. Maybe when he was on that show there. You remember Toobin. Toobin, this guy here is a famous guy. This guy here. He likes being on TV.
That's what they're saying. But where's the proof?
Where's the proof?
You're not going to be satisfied till he shows up with 10,000 pages.
But in about 10,000 pages, he's giving very specific things, but he's not actually giving any evidence of that.
It's all going to come because what they also said was, if we have to go to Congress, we'll go to Congress.
Right, but
we'll show where it is.
Some of the details that have come out, like the $59 million spent on luxury hotels, it's actually not.
You're talking about the FEMA money that was abused for migrants. That was.
Yeah.
FEMA money for migrants, that's okay now?
No, I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying it's okay. Don't put words in my mouth.
So would you stop that? Would you stop that process?
Don't be a dick. The portray. What I'm saying is the portrayal.
What? What did you just say? What did you say?
By him is just not factually accurate. He's talking about luxury hotels. You can. I'm not a big look. I was in Hurricane Katrina. I saw what FEMA does. I get it.
Yeah, you were in Hurricane Katrina. You saw what FEMA does. Hurricane Katrina, which is infamously was the worst exhibition of FEMA ever. It was so bad. It was known as the debacle of George W. Bush. Those of you who are too young to remember, I'm old enough to remember Hurricane Katrina. That was a nightmare. It was a disaster. Hurricane Katrina left thousands in the Superdome in Louisiana, homeless people in the Louisiana Superdome, urinating all over the place for I think weeks, trapped inside the Superdome. They made a mess of that place. That was just, and that's what FEMA was. Go Google George Bush and Katrina. You'll see how great FEMA was. It was disaster. He's sitting here touting like I remember Katrina. Are you out of your minds?
I think the issue too is these are congressionally appropriated funds.
Well, anyway, so that's people talking about the lack of transparency. It's like you're out of your mind. Oh yeah, we got to need more transparency. Oh yeah. Let's get back into it. Let's get back into Trump and Elon.
For a stronger mandate from the public. The public voted, we have a majority of the public voting for President Trump. We won the House, we won the Senate. The people voted for major government reform. There should be no doubt about that. That was on the campaign. The president spoke about that at every rally. The people voted for major government reform, and that's what people are going to get. They're going to get what they voted for. And a lot of times, people that don't get what they voted for, but in this presidency, they are going to get what they voted for. And that's what democracy is all about.
Mr. Musk, the White House says that you will identify.
It takes a 400 billion South African to walk Americans through like what America and democracy are all about.
And excuse yourself from any conflicts of interest that you may have. Does that mean that you are in effect policing yourself? What are the checks and—
Oh my God. Policing yourself? In a worst case scenario, he's not policing himself, because in a worst case scenario, let's assume that Tesla or Starlink or Facebook or any of the other, or X, or any of these Elon operations was somehow beneficiaries of U.S. aid or any of these other entities, these woke entities, which can't stand Elon. Let's assume somehow he was getting monies. And I know he does get some federal funding. So him policing himself and failing to cut himself, is that actual, when perhaps he should be? Perhaps he's getting an excess of funding. You can bring in someone else to examine that part of it. Does that invalidate any of the cuts that he's making? Does it invalidate a single thing that he's cut? No. It's simply saying, well, you should have also cut more. You just didn't because you were self-interested. And is that possible? 100% possible. Do I think it's happening? No. But I recognize that it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible that when it comes to his own companies, when he sees a government abuse and fraud in favor of some Elon-controlled entity, that he's just going to pretend he doesn't see it. Okay. Well, if he doesn't do this, if he does nothing at all, will that corruption that Elon's benefiting from be exposed? No. So it's either we expose potentially all and perhaps only some of it, but not the Elon, or we expose nothing. That's what Democrats are saying. It's not fair. It's not fair. It's a little fair. It's not fair. Why is it not fair? How can he police himself? He doesn't have to police himself. And if you want to fix that potential threat, bring in someone who's got nothing to do with Elon entities to examine benefits that Elon's companies have gotten from the government and see, was there fraud and abuse there? But some stupid, ridiculous, how moronic do you think Americans are that you think that this is a legitimate question? That it's like, oh, well, it's you're policing yourself. You're policing yourself. It doesn't make any sense. Oh, yeah, it doesn't make no sense. Oh, it's crazy. How can you police yourself? Doesn't make any sense. I never noticed the correlation between Tubin and Jimmy Stewart before, but it's definitely there. A long time ago, I think it was on SNL. I saw Dana Carvey doing a Jimmy Stewart imitation, and I started trying to do it then. And when I was just making fun of Tubin, I realized that I fell into that imitation. So that's how I made the connection in my brain. Iron Mountain is just a storage company. Tech companies use it for long-term secure data storage. The weird part is all the paper handling. It's very weird. This is why Putin thinks Americans are stupid and beatable. Fix it, Elon. Amen, honeybee. Even this old lady knows what B.O.B. is, and I didn't even see the movie. That's a rapper. I don't know what this is. I don't know what people are talking about. I'm out booming myself. I think I even saw Office Space. I just don't remember it. I saw it relatively recently, too. I'm waiting for someone. Someone here is going to actually say it out loud, although it's possible that you're all in on this joke. Very, very possible. Very, very possible. Transparency, why don't we get told of these spending projects prior? Good question. Great point. Did you watch Tucker Carlson's February 7th interview with Mike Benz exposing the deep state? It's absolutely epic. I saw clips of it, but I didn't get to see the whole thing yet. So if it's that good, maybe I'll check it out. He sometimes, when he's talking, like I'll just sort of like lose, I don't know. I like Mike Benz. He's a very smart guy, very based. I like him. I have no critique of him and the investigative work that he does. And he brings knowledge of how the sausage is made, which is beyond my own. I'm sitting there like I feel like sometimes I have to like take notes on what he's talking about if I'm going to remember it more than 10 minutes later. But he's a great listen. The judge literally opened up fraud as default rather than letting a pause ensure payments were valid. Yeah. I mean, the judge's decision in this and the First Circuit today went ahead and basically said, yeah, we're going to stand behind the TRO, which was just asinine. I was living in the Forest Parish city of Cutoff, Louisiana, when Katrina hit, fled 24 hours before landfall. I'm glad you did. Thank God. Trump will appoint this year the Comptroller General who oversees congressional spending and budgeting. This person is appointed every 15 years. Oh, cool. Excellent. Let's hope he picks a good person. See? Okay. There you go. There you go. It's not battery-operated boyfriend. What does that even... How would that even make sense? You're not the first person to write that. Everyone's saying this. So wait. Is it really? I don't know what's happening here.
Balances that are in place to ensure that there is accountability and transparency.
Well, we actually are trying to be as transparent as possible. In fact, we post our actions to the DOGE handle on X and to the DOGE website. So all of our actions are maximally transparent. In fact, I don't think there's been, I don't know of a case where an organization has been more transparent.
Oh, and thank you for joining Winning Reality folks who rated the stream here over in Rumble.
Than the DOGE organization. So, you know, and the kind of things we're doing are, I think, very, very simple and basic. They're not, you know, what I mentioned, for example, about Treasury, just making sure that payments that go out, taxpayer money that goes out, is categorized correctly, that the payment is explained, that organizations on the do not pay list, which takes a lot to get there, that actually are not paid, which currently they are paid. These are not individual judgment decisions. These are about simply having sensible checks and balances in the system itself to ensure that taxpayer money is spent well. So it's got nothing to do with, like, say, a contract with some company of mine at all.
But if there is a conflict of interest when it comes to you yourself, for instance, you've received billions of dollars in federal contracts. When it comes to the Pentagon, for instance, which the president I know has directed you to look into.
Yeah.
Are you policing yourself in that? Is there any sort of accountability check and balance in place that would provide any transparency for the American people?
Well,
again, you want to put a different person in on that, that's fine. None of that detracts from the work he's doing. In a worst case scenario, he's just not going to end up inspecting himself. But at least we get some inspection done, and that's better than nothing.
All of our actions are fully public. So if you see anything, you say, like, wait a second, hey, Elon, that seems like maybe that's...
Remember, for 10 months, Aaron.
There. It's not like people are going to be shy about saying that. They'll say it immediately.
Including you yourself.
Yes. But transparency is what builds trust, not simply somebody asserting trust. So not somebody saying they're trustworthy, but transparency, so you can see everything that's going on. And then you can see, am I doing something that benefits one of my companies or not? It's totally obvious.
And if we thought that, we would not let him do that segment or look in that area. If we thought there was a...
I mean, okay, let me just explain this one last time by analogy here, okay? Basically, you have this ridiculous teat of money that's just spurting out everywhere, okay? One of the beneficiaries of that is Elon's companies. So he's a beneficiary. What is he armed with? Is he armed with a straw? Is he armed with a new way of coming to, like, basically nurse from that teat? No, he's armed with an axe. He's armed with an axe to basically cut this straw, that straw, that straw, that straw, cut. If that's all he's armed with. So yeah, is he likely, one would think, as it makes sense, you have to have a concern that he's not going to be slashing at his own straw 100%. That's fine. How does that detract from the fact that he's properly slashing other straws that should not be sucking from the teat? How? If he's only armed with an axe, that's all he's got. We're not giving him new straws. I don't like that analogy. I just don't like the wording of that analogy. But overall, it's bad visual. It's just a bad visual. That was a bad visual. All right, never mind. I think you understand the point. Maybe a graphic visual helps make the point better.
Lack of transparency or a conflict of interest. And we watch that also. He's a big businessman. He's a successful guy. That's why we want him doing this. We don't want an unsuccessful guy doing this. Now, one thing also that Elon hasn't really mentioned are the groups of people that are getting some of these payments. They're ridiculous. And we're talking about billions of dollars that we've already found. We found fraud and abuse. I would say those two words as opposed to the third word that I usually use, but in this case, fraud and abuse. It's abusive because most of these.
Wait, what's the third word? Corruption? Is that what he means? Is that the word? Is it a different word? What was the third word? I want to know now.
Things are virtually made up, or certainly money shouldn't be sent to them. And you know what I'm talking about. It's crazy. So, but we're talking about tens of billions of dollars that we've already found. And now a judge who's an activist judge wants to try and stop us from doing this. Why? Why would they want to do that? I campaigned on this. I campaigned on the fact that I said government is corrupt. And it is very corrupt. It's very, very, it's also foolish. As an example, a man has a contract for 3 months and the contract ends, but they keep paying him for the next 20 years, because nobody ends a contract. You got a lot of that. You have a contract that's...
And you're saying if a person defies a court order, fines and or jail, when the executive branch says, F off, I'm doing it, what can the judicial branch actually do? And that's what people say go the Jackson route, because that's what he basically said. It's nice that you signed that order. I'm wondering if you have the army to enforce it. And that's consistent, sort of, I guess, with the Mississippi versus Johnson decision that we're looking at earlier, that it seems like they actually asked that question, like, what can we do to force the executive branch to do anything? Like, what do you think we can do here already? So, on the other hand, it's not something that we, the public, should be asking Trump to do. And I know that this is the sort of thing which people hate when people say this. I know it's very easy to get rah-rah. Trust me, I know I could probably make a lot of money doing a rant saying, you go tell those judges, go to hell. You keep going, Donald. Ignore those orders. I know I could probably, if I was like that, there's a certain type of MAGA talking head which will say that. We'll talk like that. And I know that it's lucrative to do that. I understand that. But my objective here is to actually share common sense. And that's why I'm saying to you that this, while it's the first knee-jerk reaction and it's an understandable reaction to decisions which seem ridiculous, for just asinine, stupid, insane, there's a very strong sociological benefit to actually working within the system. In that we are all benefits of our society. If the president himself basically decides I'm going rogue and doing whatever I want, at that point, because I have the power to do it and no one can stop me, which he could do, he has the, this is what you could do versus what you may do. I don't think that long term that's a healthy approach. That leads to chaos. It leads to anarchy. It ultimately leads to there not being a healthy republic. You sort of need to work within the framework of the republic. If we respect the republic, then you sort of want to, then you disrespect the republic when it doesn't suit you. Then the next thing you're basically saying is rip up the Constitution because it's in the way of what I want to do. Every constitutional law, you could throw it out saying, oh, that's what the law says. I don't care. It's just a very to start advocating that Trump should go rogue against what the stated law is advocating for ultimately advocating for complete anarchy, because basically every president comes and can be like, I'll do whatever the hell I want to do. I don't care what the law says. Then every president is a king. And some of those kings are not going to be so healthy. And I know that some of you will say that well, that's what the left does. I'm sure some of you are thinking that. That's what Biden. Yeah, to some degrees, perhaps. But not the more it's trampled on, the faster the cart goes on, the faster there are no rails. The Constitution, the rule of law that we have set up in our republic are rails to keep the cart from basically going off a cliff. And without those rails, if you just say, well, I'm disregarding the rails, you're just completely lost. Then it's just whatever the whim of the leader is. In which case, you don't need a constitution anymore. You just throw it out the window. Your First Amendment, Second Amendment, whatever it is, or the entire Bill of Rights, throw it out. I don't want to follow it. See, that's why we should be very, very hesitant. And especially a scenario like this, of something that over the course of history, this is a relatively insignificant judge and an insignificant ruling. So to start to so quickly run into the brush and say, I don't need to have the security of the rails to guide me through as to how I'm going to conduct myself, it's putting emotion over long-term perspective, respectfully. And like I said, it's very easy for me to sit in the comfort of my own little studio here and just advocate. And I know that that's what people would love to hear me say. A large percentage of people would love to hear me, not everyone, but a large number of people would love to hear me just rant off about, go Trump, you tell them to go F themselves. And people love that type of buildup. But my objective here is to give you what I think is logical for the long-term health of our society, so that you and I can live better and richer lives. So that's why I don't think it's a healthy thing for him to do. Even though I thoroughly understand your frustration and the motivation that leads someone to take the position that Echo 6 is taking here. I got it. I just think that it's short-term beneficial, long-term very dangerous. Representative Elliot Crane confirmed tonight he's drafting articles of impeachment of the New York judge. At least someone's doing something. Hope he's successful. Yeah, look, if he wants to go forward with that, okay. I don't think he will be successful. I mean, you need to get 7 Democratic. I don't think you get all 53 Republicans to sign off on it. Government reporters are lacking common sense. This is true. Straws and teats does not compute, does it? It wasn't a great analogy. I like the there has to be a better way I can draw it. But 20-year kickback on through my country is contract of fire. Yeah. Faithfully execute like pot or something. Yeah, pretty much.
A 3-month contract. Now, normally, if you're in a small, in all fairness, it's the size of this thing is so big.
Yeah.
But if you have a contract and you're in a regular business, you end the contract in 3 months. You know it's a consultant. Here's a contract for 3 months, but it goes on for 20 years. And the guy doesn't say that he got money for 20 years. They don't say it. They just keep getting checks month after month, and you have various things like that, and even much worse than that, actually, much worse. And I guess you call that incompetence, maybe.
Yeah.
It could be corruption. It could be deals made on both sides, where the guy gets some money, he kicks. I think he has a lot of kickback.
All this leads me to ask the question, how do I get a 3-month contract from the government?
Here, I see a lot of kickback here.
There's a lot of kickbacks.
Tremendous kickback, because nobody could be so stupid to give out some of these contracts. So he has to get a kickback. So that's what I got elected for, that and borders and military and a lot of things, but this is a big part of it. And I hope that the court system is going to allow us to do what we have to do. We got elected to among other things, find all of this fraud, abuse, all of this horrible stuff going on. And we've already found billions of dollars, not like a little bit, billions, many billions of dollars. And when you get down to it, it's going to be probably close to $1 trillion. It could be close to $1 trillion that we're going to find. That will have quite an impact on the budget. And you'll go to a judge where they handpick a judge, and he has certain leanings. I'm not knocking anybody for that, but he has certain leanings, and he wants us to stop looking. How do you stop looking? I mean, we've already found it. We have a case in New York where a hotel has paid $59 million, $59 million because it's housing migrants, illegal migrants. All illegal, I believe.
And they were being paid twice the normal room rate at 100% occupancy.
Unbelievable.
So it's a racket.
Mr.
Musk, I'm gonna ask you a question. You
Well,
said
how would they get twice the normal room rates? How would that be? Then appeal the TRO to Supreme Court and continue until the Supreme Court says stop. Biden already ignored the Supreme Court and the student loan forgiveness ordeal. This is true. This is true. And you can make that whole track, going off the tracks perspective analogy that I was giving a few moments ago, which is probably a little bit more on point than my straws and teats. But that would be a really interesting legal question. If he was to start voiding some of those promises and commitments and loan commitments and forgivenesses that Biden issued and start saying we're not honoring it, and we never should have made those deals. It would be a really interesting legal question to see whether or not he could do that, whether he could do that forgiveness, like renege on it and say that was unconstitutional, that was against the law, it was an illegal agreement that the government made with you. Because the law said you can't do that. The Supreme Court said you can't do that. I think he probably could do that if he wanted to. I don't know how popular that would be, but with MAGA it would be very popular. Agreed. Axes and lips also be a bad bit. There was a lot of, I was just trying to figure out how to, there's probably an easy analogy that I'm just not thinking of, but I think you all got what I was saying. I love when Trump mentions kickback because he's really saying, if you vote my way, I'll investigate you last. Maybe I won't even get to it in time. Maybe that is what he's saying. I don't know.
If I may sort of just going for the president's comments, at a high level, you say, well, what are the two ingredients that are really necessary in order to cut the budget deficit in half from 2 trillion to 1 trillion?
I just got to say, that little kid is the cutest thing in the world.
And it's really two things: competence and caring. And if you add competence and caring, you'll cut the budget deficit in half. And I fully expect to be scrutinized and get a daily proctology exam, basically. Might as well just camp out there. So it's not like I think I can get away with something. I'll be scrutinized nonstop. But with support of the president, we can cut the budget deficit in half from 2 trillion to 1. And then with deregulation, because there's a lot of sort of regulations that don't ultimately serve the public good. We need to free the builders of America to build. And if we do that, that means I think we can get the economic growth to be maybe 3-4%, maybe 5%. And that means if you can get $1 trillion of economic growth and you cut the budget deficit.
Yeah, the kid's distracting me now.
By $1 trillion. Between now and next year, there is no inflation. There's no inflation in 26. And if the government is not borrowing as much, it means that interest costs decline. So everyone's, the mortgage, their car payment, their credit card bills, anything, their student debt, the monthly payments drop. That's a fantastic scenario for the average American.
Yep.
I mean, imagine they're going down the grocery aisle and the prices from one year to the next are the same, and their mortgage, all their debt payments dropped. How great is that for the average American?
We had no idea. We had no idea we were going to find this much, and it's open. It's not like complicated. It's
not
simple
that
stuff.
complicated.
It's
like
a
lot of work. Yeah.
You can't believe it. A lot of work. A lot of smart people involved. Very, very smart people. But you're talking about anywhere maybe 500 billion. It's crazy the kind of numbers you're talking
really crazy.
about. Normally when you're looking at something, you'll find you're looking for 1 out of 100. Here, you're almost reversing it. You look for one that's good.
Yeah.
And you can look at the title and you say, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And the public gets it. The public gets it. You've seen the polls. The public is saying, why are we paying all this money? This for years, this has gone on.
Mr. Most President Trump.
Yeah, go ahead. Wait, go ahead.
Senator Rand Paul today said that DOGE cuts will ultimately need a vote in Congress. Do you agree with that? Is that the plan?
I really don't know. I know this.
I mean, it's probably true because but it's not really a vote in Congress. You just need to have a CER that says we're cutting out everything DOGE identified. Really, you need to have Thune and Mike Johnson sit down with Elon and be able to identify the things that need to be cut, and then the continuing resolution just slash them out.
We're finding tremendous fraud and tremendous abuse. If I need a vote of Congress to find fraud and abuse, it's fine with me. I think we'll get the vote, although there'll be some people that wouldn't vote. And how could a judge want to hold us back from finding all of this fraud and finding all of this incompetence? Why would that happen? Why would even Congress want to do that? Now, Congress, if we do need a vote, I think we'd get a very easy vote because we have a track record now. We've already found billions of dollars of abuse, incompetence, and corruption. A lot of corruption.
If a judge does block one of your policies, part of your agenda, will you abide by that ruling? Will you comply?
Well, I always abide by the courts, and then I'll have to appeal it. But then what he's done is he slowed down the momentum. And it gives crooked people more time to cover up the books. You know, if a person's crooked and they get caught, other people see that, and all of a sudden it becomes harder later on. So, yeah, the answer is I always abide by the courts, always abide by them, and will appeal. But
You're a smart man. That's a smart response.
Appeals take a long time, and I would hope that a judge, if you go into a judge...
Because if he answered that question differently, that ends up just starting an avalanche of people calling for impeachment with justifiable basis. He's supposed to be upholding the Constitution, and he's not. He's saying he won't. So that's a wise answer.
And you show them, here's a corrupt situation. We have a check to be sent, but we found it to be corrupt. Do you want us to send this corrupt check to a person, or do you want us not to give it and give it back to the taxpayer? I would hope a judge would say, don't send it, give it back to the taxpayer.
Yeah, if I can add to that, what we're finding is that a bunch of the fraud is not even going to Americans. So I think we can all agree that if there's going to be fraud, it should at least go to Americans. But a bunch of the fraud rings that are operating in the United States and taking advantage of the federal government, especially in the entitlements programs, are actually foreign fraud rings. They're operating in other countries and actually exporting money to other countries. We should stop that. And this is big numbers. We're about $100 to $200 billion a year.
Sure.
Serious money.
Mr. Musk, you said on X that an example of the fraud that you have cited was $50 million of condoms was sent to Gaza. But after fact check this, apparently Gaza in Mozambique, and the program was to protect them against HIV. So can you correct the statements? It wasn't sent to Hamas, actually. It was sent to Mozambique, which makes sense why condoms was sent there.
Yeah.
And how can we make sure that all the statements that you said were correct, so we can trust what you say?
Well, first of all, some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes. I'm not sure we should be sending $50 million worth of condoms to anywhere, frankly. I'm not sure that's something Americans would be really excited about. And that
$50 million. How many? I'm checking out what the population of Gaza, Mozambique is. As of 2017, the population of Gaza, a province in Mozambique, was 1,422,000. So $50 on condoms for every human. Man, woman, child. $50 worth of condoms. Yeah, that's fraud. That's fraud. You're talking basically $37 per person or so. Ridiculous. Let's... $35 per person in condoms for every man, woman, and child. Yeah, that's much more compelling. Much more compelling right there.
That is really an enormous number of condoms if you think about it. But you know, if it went to Mozambique instead of Gaza, I'm like, okay, that's.
And if you consider that half of them are women, so you know, men buying condoms. I guess some women buy condoms also. Do women buy condoms? I don't know. But you know, I guess if the average man is walking around with $70 worth of condoms, probably women don't need to buy them, right? Right? Insanity.
Not as bad, but still, you know, why are we doing that?
Mr. Musk, can you talk a little bit about how closely you're working with agency heads as you're directing these cuts? Do they have how much input do agency heads have when you're making these decisions?
Yeah, we work closely with the agency heads, yeah. So there are sort of checks in place. So it's not us just going in and doing things willy nilly. It's in partnership with the agency heads, and I check frequently with the president to make sure that you know this is what the president wants to have happen. So you know, we talk almost every day, and I double check things to make sure, is this something, Mr. President, you want us to do this? We'll do it.
USAID has been one of your main targets.
Falling in the Ghetto says, one thing Elon wants, damnably so, is more H-1B or whatever you call it. Visas for cheaper labor. That, and when possibly no labor, face it. This is the final presidency, even John warned in the Revelation. I'll tell you that I disagree with him about that. I'm on the same side as you are. I think that O1s are fine. You don't need H1 and B, the H1Bs. You don't need those. I agree with that. He's not the president. That's his. We're going to disagree with him on some things. Look, right now we're fighting to see, and I'm curious. I'm going to try and check in. Maybe we'll get a decision on this soon. As far as Tulsi being confirmed, I think are they still going through with that ridiculous filibuster that they were doing? Tulsi confirmation. It's going to be tomorrow. The vote. Yeah. And I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of things Tulsi says that I disagree with. The objective is that the areas that they're assigned to, they're consistent with the MAGA objective. But if they happen to not, a lot of things RFK Jr. says that I don't agree with, and I'm hoping he gets confirmed for HHS. The idea is that, you know, Trump is the president. He's the one we voted for. He's the one whose agendas we hopefully are consistent with ours. But the rest of these folks, to the degree they're helpful, great. And if they disagree with us on certain policies that they're not in charge of, all right, who cares? That's their individual perspective. So it's not hurting anyone. That'd be a lot of banging for someone. That for $70 for $50 million for condoms, yeah.
Are you concerned at all that some of the cuts or that shutting that agency altogether may lead to diseases or other bigger problems starting in other countries that then come to the United States? Yeah, so that's an interesting example. So that's something where we work closely with the State Department and Secretary Rubio. And we have, for example, turned on funding for Ebola prevention and for HIV prevention. Left that, you said?
Yes, correct. And we are moving fast, so we will make mistakes, but we'll also fix the mistakes very quickly. So
do you see it as a worthy cause, USAID?
I think that there's some worthy things, but overall, if you say what was the bang for the buck, I would say it was not very good. And there was far too much of what USAID was doing was influencing elections in ways that I think were dubious and do not stand the light of day.
I mean, just as a follow-up to the Pentagon contracts, if you have received billions of dollars in contracts from the Pentagon, and the president's directing you to look into the Department of Defense, is that a conflict of interest?
And are going to do at the president's request.
Does that present a conflict of interest for you?
No, because.
Oh my God, again with the conflict of interest.
So you'd have to look at the individual contract and say, first of all, I'm not the one.
By the way, examining the DOD seems like a much more complicated thing, like a million times more complicated. I'm just going to point this out to you. I expect the developments in the DOD examination to take a lot longer. But we're not going to get those sudden quick hits there. Because, you know, how many javelins they have, where the javelins are, how many, this type of helicopter, that type of fighter plane, this type of weaponry. I mean, it's so immense. And then trying to assess the legitimacy of these expenditures is going to be, it's so much harder than knowing that, hey, 50 million for condoms is insane. In some foreign country is insane. So, yeah, that's going to be a much tougher road to hoe. I don't even know how that seems like a much more daunting task to me.
You know, filing the contract, it's people at SpaceX or someone who will be putting for the contract. And I'd like to say, if you see any contract where where it was awarded to SpaceX and it wasn't by far the best value for money for the taxpayer, let me know, because every one of them was.
The president said the other day that you might look at treasuries. Could you explain that a little bit? What kind of fraud, and that question goes to both of you, what kind of fraud are you expecting to see or do you see right now in U.S. treasuries?
Yeah, I think you mean the Treasury Department as opposed to Treasury bills, or
you also referenced treasuries on Air Force One the other night.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, really the first order of business is to make sure we're actually collecting. Sorry for this, although my son might enjoy this, but he's sticking his fingers in my ears and stuff. So it's a bit hard to hear sometimes. Hey, stop that. No, the stuff we're doing with Treasury Department is so basic that you can't believe it doesn't exist already. So for example, like I mentioned, just making sure that when a payment goes out, it has to have a payment categorization code. It's like, what type of payment is this? You can't just leave the field blank. Currently, many payments, the field is left blank. And you have to describe what's the payment for, some basic rationalization. That also is left blank. So this is why, the Pentagon, when's the last time the Pentagon passed an audit? I mean, a decade ago, maybe? Ever? Really? And we want to just, in order to actually pass audits, you have to have financial information that allows you to trace the payments. And once in a while, the Treasury has to pause payments if it thinks the payment is going to a fraudulent organization. If a company or an organization is on a do not pay list, we should not pay it. I'm sure you would agree. Like, if it's quite hard to get on that payment, the do not pay list, it means that this is someone that is like dead people, terrorists, known fraudsters, that kind of thing. We should not pay them. But currently we do, which is crazy. We should stop that.
Many transactions. And by the way, hundreds, thousands of transactions like that. You know, we have a big team. And for the sake of the country, I hope that the person that's in charge and the other people that report to me that are in charge are allowed to do the right thing, namely make sure everything's honest, legitimate, and competent. But we're looking at
isn't it?
When you look at USAID, that's one. We're going to look at the military. We're going to look at education. They're much bigger areas. But the USAID is really corrupt. I'll tell you, it's corrupt. It's incompetent, and it's really corrupt. And I can't imagine a judge saying, well, it may be corrupt, but you don't have the right. You got elected to look over the country and to, as we say, make America great again, but you don't have the right to go and look and see whether or not things are right that they're paying or that things are honest that they're paying. And nobody can even believe this. Other people, law professors, they've been saying, how can you take that person's right away? You're supposed to be running the country, but we're not allowed to look at who they're paying it to and what they're paying. We have massive amounts of fraud that we caught. I think we probably caught way over a lot of billions of dollars already in, 2 weeks?
Yes.
And it's going to go to numbers that you're not going to believe. And much, as I said, much is incompetence and much is dishonesty. We have to catch it. And the only way we're going to catch it is to look for it. And if a judge is going to say you're not allowed to look for it, that's pretty sad for our country. I don't understand how it could even work.
On the buyout program, can you personally guarantee that?
Which one?
The buyout program, the offer to federal workers. Can you personally guarantee that the workers who opt in to resign now will be paid through
Well,
September?
they'll get their money, but they're getting a good deal. They're getting a big buyout. And what we're trying to do is reduce government. We have too many people. We have office space. It's occupied by 4%. Nobody's showing up to work because they were told not to. And then Biden gave them a 5-year pass.
Yeah, I don't know how you find stuff like
48,000 of
that.
them. Gave them a 5-year pass.
How the heck is Elon going to find stuff like that? I don't even know. That's like, sounds like there's probably thousands of incidents like that. I don't know how he's going to find any of that stuff.
That for 5 years, you don't have to show up to work. And let me tell you, this is largely, much of this stuff is because of Biden. It's his fault. He allowed this country, what he did on our border. What he did on our border is almost not as bad as what he did with all of these contracts that have come out. It's a very sad day when we look at it. I can't even believe it. But many contracts just extend and they just keep extending, and there was nobody there to correct it. And that cannot be, I can't imagine that could be held up by the court. Any court that would say that the president or his representatives, like Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of State, whatever, doesn't have the right to go over their books and make sure everything's honest. I mean, how can you have a country? You can't have anything that way. You can't have a business that way. You can't have a country that way. Hey, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Mark Fogel will be at the White House tonight at about 10 o'clock. If you want to come over, you can say hello to him.
Did you guys get anything in return?
Not much. No, they were very nice. We were treated very nicely by Russia, actually. I hope that's the beginning of a relationship where we can end that war and millions of people can stop being killed. They've lost millions of people. They lost, in terms of soldiers, probably 1.5 million soldiers in a short period of time. We got to stop that war. And I'm interested primarily from the standpoint of death. We're losing all those soldiers. And they're not American soldiers, they're Ukrainian and Russian soldiers. But you're probably talking about 1.5 million. I think we got to bring that one to an end. Okay? Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's go.
Thank you. We're moving.
10 o'clock. 10 o'clock.
All right. Well, there you go. There you go. Great press conference there. He brought up there, in case you're unfamiliar with this, that Mark Fogel was released by Russia today. And because Trump heroically managed to negotiate a deal for his release from Putin.
Contact us.
I'm trying to find video of that right now where supposedly he met with them. Where Trump and Mark Fogel met. Let's see if I found a good one, because this just happened, I think, while we were live.
Hostage is released. It's a special moment, not only for the family and for the hostage, but the American people, a feeling that, in this case, that maybe America's strength is back, from my perspective.
There was this bullish kind of feeling in his tone, not only about
negotiated settlement, one that would probably.
I want to see him. I want to find. Let me see if I can find it here.
What if the last thing a motorcyclist sees is
Never given blood before? Let's get to the bottom of why. Think needles are scary? You're not alone. But most people describe it as only a mild
Fox sucks.
Heads up.
Between the two of them. We got to get it in. What's your time again?
mother. It's very difficult to articulate how proud I am of you and how proud I am of what you've done and being back in my country.
Wow.
She's in shock, but I think she's bubbling. I went with a grip. Well, in total awe, and
Wow.
I thank you for you, your administration, and the people that brought me home. And I just spent the rest of my life.
This man was forgotten by the Biden administration. He was arrested for weed in Russia.
To you and the country, and I'm so excited.
And Trump negotiated his release today. He's probably like, who are you people? I don't know who you are. Because how would he know Mark Johnson or Thune? It's like he's been away for 4 years. 4 years ago, very few people knew Johnson or Thune.
I know. I asked him how they got it in there. Yes, they said they snuck him in. I knew this was President Trump with Squirrel Hill. Hey, good to see you. I had a Steeler hat on when I got off the plane. All right. I don't know where it is, but it's great to see your mom came to our house. She told me that. And, I just talked to Vicky, and I know she was there. And I'm a brother. Smart guy, good to see you. You've been an absolute star.
That's nice. All right. Anyway, I don't know if the audio here is going to get any better. We're going to come back in here. I guess we'll get a few minutes of this.
Everybody knows Mark. He's become a very famous guy. He's a very happy guy tonight. So it's just a real honor. An honor to have you at the White House.
I feel like the luckiest man on earth right now. And I want you to know that I am not a hero in this at all. And President Trump is a hero. These men that came from the diplomatic service are heroes. The senators and representatives that passed legislation in my honor to get me home are the heroes. I am in awe of what they all did. My family has been a force. I think my 95-year-old mother is probably the most dynamic 95-year-old on earth right now. And I am so indebted to so many people. I think I remember a Churchill quote that he said when the RAF was fighting the Luftwaffe. He said that never have so many owed so much to so few. And I put myself fortunately and unfortunately into that category. And I said, never has one owed so much to so many. That this super organism of people that came to my support and the love that I was given sustained me for 3.5 years in a prison that had me in hospitals for more than 100 days.
Wow.
I was given more than 400 injections in that time. And knowing I had the support of my fellow Pennsylvanians, my family, my friends,
he probably thought he'd never step foot in American soil again.
That
he probably was sure he would never see America again.
It brought me to my knees and it brought me to tears, but it was my energy, it was my being that kept me going that whole time. And I will forever be indebted to President Trump, to Steve over there. What a dynamic man this guy is.
That's true.
When I met him, the energy, the can-do attitude just exudes from his body. And when he smiled at me and introduced me and I got the feel for what has happened, you know, it's not just me, it's everybody. And Secretary Rubio, who met my son a while back, I'm a middle-class school teacher who's now in a dream world.
We're going to show you the Lincoln bedroom in a little while. It's a very special place. Appropriate for tonight, I think. Very appropriate.
And
wow.
Thank you all. And I love our country. And I'm so happy to be back here. And I wish I could articulate it better.
You've done beautifully. And he's got a great mother. And when I saw the mother at a rally, she said, if you win, will you get my son out? And I promised. She's 95 years old. And I said, we'll get him out. And we got him out pretty quickly.
She told me that exact words. And,
another promise made, another promise kept. Another promise made, another promise kept. This guy's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. He's really unbelievable. I don't know how he does it. I really don't think they're going to chase individual assets for DOD, big money in defense contracts outside of arms vehicles. I don't know how they're going to do it. Yeah, I found it. We're good. Winter Solstice has returned. We won World 2 with 7 4-star generals. We currently have 47 4-stars. DOD is going to be huge. Oh, I agree with you. It's going to be huge. I'm just saying I don't think it's going to be so fast. It was medical Mary Jane that he had. Probably. Was it? It was medical marijuana? Wow, I didn't know that. I thought it was recreational. Medical marijuana. Wow. I have no sympathy for idiots that visit dictators. Oh. It was medical. That really changes the whole story. Thanks for sharing that, Ellie. Ellie Font. What is this? Just shrink that down. All right. Well, not everyone, by the way, is. I mean, this is Mike Johnson talking about DOGE. Let's get this real quick.
I met with Elon yesterday about this to get an update, and
because they were talking about how he's got to get approval from Congress, which I think it's possible that for some of this stuff he's going to need help from Congress, and that's going to start with Mike Johnson.
To me, it's very exciting what they're able to do, because what Elon and the DOGE effort is doing right now is what Congress has been unable to do in recent years, because the agencies have hidden some of this from us. You know, there's a lot of oversight activity that goes on around here all the time. You all know, but
nothing comes of it.
When duly elected representatives of the people request information to find all of these abuses and it's not turned over to us, what it takes is an actual audit of the systems and the files themselves that are often hidden from Congress. That's what you're seeing right now. And that's why this is so exciting. They're uncovering things that we have known intuitively have been there, but we couldn't prove it.
Yep.
Now the proof is being provided.
Yep.
And no one can argue the counter to that. So stay tuned. There's a lot more to come. And I think that the courts should take a step back and allow these processes to play out. What we're doing is good and right for the American people. What DOGE is
and American people see it.
Making sure that your taxpayer dollars, all of us, are spent in the way that they're intended to be spent, and that they're in America's interest, and they're financially responsible with the precious taxpayers' money. We have a $36 trillion federal debt, and we have got to get hold of these things. You're going to see it reflected in the reconciliation package that comes forward. You're going to see it reflected in appropriations as we go forward, and you're going to see it in these efforts to cut the waste, fraud, and abuse. And we think the final number on that is going to be substantial and a game changer in Washington for the country.
That's awesome. That's what we need to hear. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear from Mike Johnson. That it's going to be reflected in the appropriations bill. Again, I mentioned it yesterday. I'll tell you again. Our current appropriations bill expires. We have a continuing resolution, which is basically, let's just keep paying the same bill over and over and over again, adjusted for inflation, over and over and over and over again for decades. They're supposed to be a year at a time, but they haven't even been doing it a year at a time recently because there's been big fights. Thank you, God bless Matt Gaetz, for saying, no, I'm not signing off on this stuff. And all sorts of fights to keep government open. And then they reach an accord where they're like, okay, we'll keep it open for a few months. Well, the current continuing resolution, which is abbreviated CR, the current CR expires March 14th. Just another 30 days away. 30 days from now, it expires. 30 days, which means they need to work out a new CR. Otherwise, government shuts down. Whenever you hear about potential government shutdown, that's because there's no funding, because they haven't worked out a new CR. Or technically, it's not supposed to be a CR. It's actually supposed to be doing a real budget, but they never can do that. That seems like, astronomical aspirations to do what, Congress is supposed to be doing every year. So at least the next CR, Mike Johnson is saying we're going to be incorporating what DOGE did here. We're going to be incorporating it. Not everyone is excited about this. Although I guess you got this lunatic from Oregon. What's her name? Oregon Democrat Representative Maxine Dexter. She hit the news cycle today with this little clip.
I've been told I have 30 seconds. So I am going to tell you that we do have to, I don't swear in public very well, but we have to fuck Trump.
Yay, stand up for corruption. Losers.
Please don't tell my children that I just did that.
That's what they have. That's all they have now. That's all they have. Yay. Unbelievable. Pathetic. All right. I think it's time for us to transition over. Let's transition over. Let's do it. Oh, wait, one last thing here. I now have Rumble Premium because of my Timcast membership. So that's pretty neat. Nice. Yes, Timcast came to Rumble. I don't know what that means, but I guess they signed him. So that happened. Okay. Daily Mail today. Daily Mail broke this out. No, this is not the one I want. Let's get. Go to trending politics news. We have to talk a little bit about Ilhan Omar and her familial relationships. Bombshell report confirms the worst about Ilhan Omar. A damning new report confirms a long-time rumor about squad member Ilhan Omar, Democrat from Minnesota, one that opponents have wielded against her since her first campaign for office in 2018. According to those close to the Democrat, Omar allegedly vowed to, quote, do what she had to do. Do what she had to do to get her brother papers authorizing him to live in the country. Conservative critics cry foul accused her marrying Ahmed Elmi in an unlawful bid to game the United States citizenship system. Abdi Hakim Osman, a former friend of Squad Congresswoman, is the first person to come forward and confirm that it was Representative Omar's intention all along to get her brother papers to live in the U.S. Because of the lack of paperwork in war-torn Somalia, no paperwork of their sibling relationship is available. But he's basically coming forward and saying, yes, I know them, and they are siblings. And that allowed her deception. The lack of paperwork allowed her deception to fly under the radar for 2 decades. Quote, she said she needs to get papers for her brother to go to school. We all thought she was just getting papers to allow him to stay in this country, not marrying him. In 2002, Omar married Ahmed Hersi in a Muslim ceremony. Now, this gets a little complicated. Her romantic entanglements get complicated. So first, she marries Ahmed Hersi in 2002. That went legally unrecognized. So they got married in a religious ceremony, but didn't file with the state anywhere that they had gotten married. Couple split in 2008, but apparently had a child, while Omar was married to her brother Elmi in 2009. When Hersi and Ilhan got married, a lot of people were invited. Oh, it was a big, fantastic celebration. Big Islamic wedding, uniting 2 large clans and community, Osman told the outlet. When she married Elmi, no one even knew about it. No one knew there had been a wedding until the media turned up the certificate years later. If she really married him, why wouldn't she have had a big ceremony? If she really had, if it was like this whole romantic relationship, why not have a big party about it? Osman's revelations are sure to spark renewed focus on Omar's relationship with her brother. Originally, she dismissed accusations of a false marriage as baseless rumors and accused journalists of Islamophobia. If you dare to ask about her marriage to Elmi. More recently, she stayed quiet and refused to answer further questions. Quote, the congresswoman was focused on the work her constituents sent her to Washington to accomplish. Well, her constituents, supposedly she's a big beneficiary of pay for votes. Omar and her first husband, Hersi, were married in a Muslim ceremony that went unrecognized by the state of Michigan because they did not file paperwork. The couple had their first child while married and a second while she was legally married to Elmi, which I assume it's Hersi's kid, not some product of incest. By the late 2000s, Elmi, an effeminate man, began appearing by her side in the community, Osman confirmed. Quote, people began noticing that Ilhan and Southside, which is Hersi, were often with a very effeminate young guy. The community later said through an interpreter, he was very feminine in the way he dressed. He would wear light lipstick and pink clothes and very, very short shorts in the summer. People started whispering about him. Hersi and Ilhan both told me it was Ilhan's brother, and he had been living in London, but he was mixing with what were seen as bad influences that the family did not like, so they sent him to Minneapolis as rehab. In contrast to her first marriage, Omar's marriage to Elmi was barely made known to their local Somali community. Quote, when she married Elmi, no one even knew about it, Osman said. Hersi, who is well known for his love of soccer, promoted a lot of Somali shows. He's very popular. So the scandal was about Hersi's brother-in-law more than Ilhan's brother. The New York Post reported last month that the FBI launched an investigation into Omar's marriage to Elmi with a trove of documents reportedly being handed over to agents. This is all now coming into Cash and Bondi's hands, well, assuming Cash gets confirmed. Any findings would be shared with the U.S. Customs and Immigration Enforcement. The penalty for falsifying marriage to skirt immigration laws is up to 5 years and a $250,000 fine. 5 years and a $250,000 fine. 5 years. Can she lose her citizenship status for this? Can she be denaturalized? That's a little tougher. That I'm not as hopeful for. I think it's more. I think she would have to be thrown in jail before she would even lose her seat, and kicking her out of the country. Probably not going to happen. After marrying Elmi, Omar and her brother moved to Fargo, where both attended North Dakota State. The marriage allowed both of them to qualify for student loans, Osman disclosed. Quote, she said she needs to get papers for her brother to go to school. We all thought she was just getting papers to get allowed to stay in the country. Once she had the papers, they could apply for student loans. They both moved to North Dakota to go to school, but she was still married to Hersey in the Somali way. The only marriage that mattered was the one in the mosque. Ilhan came back to Minneapolis all the time to see her family, but her brother didn't come with her. Despite Omar and Elmi both being Muslim, their wedding was performed by local Christian priests. More susness. Someone Osman believes was sought out because Somali ministers in the Muslim community knew they were siblings. We got to find someone who doesn't know that we popped out of the same womb. Omar and Elmi divorced in 2017, shortly before her first campaign for office. She remarried Hersey the following year. Osman scoffed at the idea she and Hersey were ever separated. They never parted, he said. So basically, it was a marriage just on the books. I don't think there was any gross incestuous relationship. Frankly, the way to describe Elmi, he's probably flaming and probably has very little interest in any woman, much less his own sister. But I'm not passing on that. I'm simply saying I don't think that they anyone might speculate whether the kid is Elmi's. I doubt it based on how they describe Elmi. Last year, Daily Mail reported that Omar apparently had an affair with her chief fundraiser, Tim Minette, a married father of one, and she moved out of Minnesota penthouse and filed for divorce from Hersey. Two separate officials in November, and Minette divorced his wife the following month. During Minette's divorce proceedings, his ex-wife allegedly attempted to reinstate him about his affair with Omar, but was cut off by the presiding judge. She is protected from on high. I don't know where these people come from that they get this level of protection. I have no idea. I hope it's less likely to be Homan. It's more likely to be Bondi to go after her. More likely to be Bondi. Like I said, she is a naturalized citizen of the United States, conferring upon her all the same citizenship status you and I enjoy. The only way to get her denaturalized, the only way is sometimes, very, very rarely. So we've seen some statements from her where she says, "I am here for Somalia. I am your representative in Congress." Even that is, because part of the oath of allegiance that every potentially naturalized citizen, everyone who's looking to immigrate to this country, has taken oath of allegiance, where they're basically abandoning their fidelity to their native country and pledging their fidelity to ours. That's just part of becoming an American citizen. So she had to undergo that process. So as far as her getting denaturalized for committing a crime that results in 5 years in jail, even though that crime is related to immigration, seeing as how it's not related to her own immigration status, it would simply be related to her brother's immigration status. I do not think that would factor in to the possibility of her being denaturalized. There's far more grounds to argue for denaturalization based on her statements about how she cares a lot more about Somalia than America. Even that, I frankly don't know that what the statements she has made to date would rise to a level. I'm doubtful that they would rise to a level to see her citizenship revoked. So I don't foresee that happening. I would be shocked if such a thing happened. Less shocking, but still ridiculously surprising, would be to see her get convicted of any sort of crime and face any sort of penalty from the court. I think that would be that too would be shocking. it would be mildly surprising to see even, I would say it'd be very surprising, actually. Not shocking, but very surprising to see her get charged. I'm hopeful she gets charged. And I think the more public discussion there's about this, about scrutinizing her relationship with Elmi and whether or not they actually are siblings, and testimony from various people. Because how do you prove, if let's say there's no documentation from the host country, how would we prove that she really is a sibling to Elmi? How would you prove such a thing? Well, by the way, one penalty could be a denaturalization for him, like get him kicked the hell out of the country. Homan would be coming for Elmi, not for her. But Pam Bondi can come after her. And potentially, if there's enough online scuttlebutt about it, I do think that that may motivate the DOJ to actually see if there's enough there for a case. But we're not going to know if such a thing is happening. They already talk about how a trove of documents was given over to the FBI. So basically, at this point, it's in the ball is in Pam Bondi's court. And frankly, it's very possible that whatever documentation they have, it's not. They don't. They may come to the legal conclusion, the legal strategy of recognizing that they're unlikely to attain a conviction and forego it, in which case this story will die on the vine and we'll never even know that there was a discussion by the DOJ. We'll never even know anything about it. That's the most likely scenario. But there are more, if you want to be hopeful, there are scenarios we can envision that, hey, with a lot of public pressure, perhaps we can see charges brought against her. And if charges are brought against her, certainly if she's convicted, you imagine she gets removed from the House. And whatever embarrassment she can face, she's a terrible human being, a disgraceful embarrassment in Congress, just an awful, awful, awful human being. And any bit of embarrassment that come her way is a blessing from God that we should all be grateful for. DNA would be the proof. DNA could be the proof. That's true. Chad, big balls and co-nerd, save America. There you go. Save America. Unless you consummate a marriage with a brother or your husband, I call bull. Ew. Yeah, that is gross. That is really, really gross. Why would you go there? Why? Why would you do that? I don't understand. Why bring that up? Why even say such a thing? What did we do to you, Elephant? Anyway, that's my story for tonight. We covered it. Another show in the books. You know what that means? Time for me to remind you that lab meat is for they, them. It is for they, them. It's not for you. You don't want the lab meat. You don't want any of that stuff. Wait, did I have anything else here I wanted to get to? Was there anything else? I didn't want to do that. No, that I definitely didn't want. Oh, let me see if I made my. Did I make my thing? Yeah, that definitely. I think we're good. Yeah. Okay. And landing the plane. Tuck yourself in. We're wrapping up. Joe, I'm getting the whole. All right. Okay. Yeah. So you know what they say. No matter how delicious it looks, no matter how many little legs they got sprouting out of it, I know that's appealing. You might think to yourself, "Oh, cricket polka." No. Do not eat the bugs. That's my show. I'm Good Logic. Good night and Godspeed.